Welcome back to the Peer Perspective Podcast. My name is Kyle, and today I'm sitting down with someone who has a powerful story of resilience, recovery, and growth. My guest is Isaac, who opens up about his earliest experiences with substance use and the challenges that came in finding his way forward. In our conversation, Isaac shares not only the difficulties and darker moments he's lived through, but also the strength and structure that helped him turn things around. His story highlights the reality of what so many people face, but it also reminds us that hope and healing is possible. I'm honored to have him here today to share his story with all of us. Let's get into it. Here's the conversation with Isaac.
Back in 1977,
Okay.
I was born in Winona, Minnesota.
Okay.
And with that being said, greatness was born. No.
Yeah.
Well, my earliest memories, right, were, I guess it's not even my memories. What I've been told and been proven is my biological mother left me in a tent pretty much for dead, like that type of thing. One of my dad's friends had went to his work and told my dad where I was in this situation or in that type of thing. So my dad took off of work and came and got me, brought me home, and then clearly he was upset with my biological mother at that point, but she had still been in the picture. She was involved in drugs and alcohol and that type of thing, so
Sure.
Not to make any excuses, but one thing led to another. Short time after that, she had taken me while my dad was working and split town, went down to Iowa, and left me at her dad's, my grandpa and grandma's down there. And it took a while for my dad to find me, find out where I was. When he did come down, and he had to stay down there for whatever legal purposes to
Sure.
bring me back here. Some scenario like that.
To do it legally.
I believe that was the situation. But either way, he showed up and
Yeah.
he came to get me. He cared that much, so kudos to him.
Yeah.
Right? And then moving forward, it wasn't too long after that my dad had met who I call my mom, which is a blessing in my life. She was 16 years old when she started raising me. And, needless to say, like there was a period, I think I was like 9 years old when I had a sister born.
Okay.
And for whatever reasons, I started rebelling after that. Probably wasn't the best child, that type of thing, but I always considered myself like the black sheep of the family after that. But it was like 11 years old, I think, where I started drinking. I snuck a beer from my father, and I guess I don't remember too much about it, but after that, there was a lot of screaming and hollering and some physical abuse in the family, and that's when I really started to rebel. So I'd run away, and keep in mind that none of us come with owner manuals when we're born. Right. So, having two kids, the screaming and hollering, I left, I'd run away. And I believe in my heart these days that my parents didn't run to my rescue. They're like, oh, well, he can just sit there after a period of time,
Right.
So I ended up going to group homes. I was at a group home in Winona many times. And I remember the first time, it was probably 11 or 12 years old. And I remember the first couple days I was there is when I first started smoking weed. I tried acid and coke all around the age of 11 or 12.
What kind of feelings came up, being in a place like that, knowing that you couldn't go back home at a young age? What went through your head?
I think it was like some abandonment issues.
Sure.
Felt like I was saying earlier, black sheep of the family. I didn't feel like I had a choice. And then the screaming and hollering, I didn't know what to think really. You
Yeah.
know, I was hurt and sad, and but I mean that didn't stop me. You know, that kept my career of like my criminal activity at that point.
Sure.
I remember the night staff sleeping at the group home, and that's when I started sneaking out with other residents that were there, juveniles, and we broke into a bar one time, and we got busted before they even knew they got broken into because I was at a group home. You know, we woke up for breakfast that morning, and there was a bunch of bottles all over the ground outside of the big bay window. I remember that. Like, how stupid is that?
Didn't
you
think
know?
that went through, did you?
Yeah, no, clearly I didn't think that went through. But so I did get in trouble for that.
Sure.
And I ended up in group homes, detention centers, jails. You know, because that was the burglary. Then I'd get out. You know, after the I think that was actually a work program in Chisholm House in Duluth, is what I went to jail for on that, or the program, part of the Woodland Hills program. But you know, then I got out of there, and you know, got a chance to go back home. I, you know, rebelled again.
Sure.
You know, would run away. Just felt like left out and that type of thing. You know,
Yeah.
and again, I mean, I think that's probably the era where I began to hang out with gang members that were new to the area, and you know, got initiated into the gang and that
Yeah.
type of thing.
Almost became like a cycle.
I mean, it was a huge cycle because I'd run away, you know, and I wouldn't hang out with people my age, clearly, you know, because you know, they're not cool, or you know, it's just
Right.
not the crowd that I chose with, you know. But I had little side jobs back then too, so I had some money in the bank, you know, so I'd clean out my bank account, and clearly the older crowd that's on the dark side, you know, they took advantage of that.
Sure.
And that's really what that was, you know. And my parents didn't know what to do with me, you know, so they would just teach him a lesson, you know, hopefully he gets it this time, is where my mind is at now.
Yeah.
Back then it didn't feel that way, but so I, you know, I remember one moment where it was a Grand Theft Auto, which I believe that ended up in Red Wing Correctional Facility, a juvenile prison. So my child life had everything to do with spending a lot of time in, you know, like I said, group homes, institutions, prisons. And then once I became like 17, I remember my parents getting a divorce, and then I got to stay at my dad's house when he was living up in the cities, and I was staying with my aunt. She was living there too. But so I had a bunch of freedom then, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, there was a real good friend of mine, friend of the family type of thing, where at that point we started selling a lot of drugs, and it just wasn't really a good scenario. I mean, at that point, I did meet my kid's mom, so that did come out of it, right?
Right.
And it's weird too because she doesn't do any drugs whatsoever. You know, at that point she's never drank, and weed, she would freak out, that type of thing. So
Yeah.
you know, I didn't have to worry about someone taking my stuff, and
Right.
you know, and it was acceptable back then, you know, when we were kids.
Right.
But then I started having kids with her, and I remember my first kid, and it's, you know, I look back at it now and it's heart-wrenching because like I didn't provide as much as I could have back then. You know, my whole life I grew up wanting to provide, be better than my parents, as we all do. So I continued on smoking crack back then, and like I said, there was a friend of the family. There was an unlimited supply of coke, pretty much. You know, and weed, you name it, we had access to it in larger quantities. But yeah, I mean, so then we had our second kid, and that's when, and that was my daughter, and that stuff kind of still continued,
Right.
you know, and at that point is when that person got arrested, for the coke, and I tried to like. Oh, first of all, like I got arrested with some crack back then too, and we were in a projects type of thing, and we got a 5-day payer vacay. So because of my criminal activity,
Sure.
and I pled with them, and I was like, look, I'll sign a no trespassing, to let my family stay here, and I won't be on the property anymore. And they actually gave that to me, so they got some grace in that, which I'm grateful for. Moved up to Roberts, Wisconsin. At that point, got a job, got another job, and eventually got apartment and moved my daughter up, and then my family. So that's how we came to like Roberts.
Okay.
And I was doing pretty good right there in the beginning. And I remember going to find some coke one day, and I found meth. I've seen it in Winona too, but not as much.
Sure.
And up here it's like boom, off to the races I was. And I guess I never really looked back.
Had you dabbled in it before?
I did dabble in it a little bit in Winona.
Okay,
just like a handful of times.
Sure.
It wasn't like crack and coke were
But it was a different deal here.
It was a different deal here. Yeah, it was. It was like the only thing around that you could find weed and crack, or weed and meth, right? So there was a lot of it up here.
Yeah.
And not to say that's an excuse or anything, but I have been doing meth for a long time.
How many years would you say?
Ooh, I would say about more part of 20-some years.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it only got worse as my time went on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, when I came up here and moved my family up here, we did have 2 more kids. And we're in an apartment, and I was still doing meth, and my relationship got. Well, okay, so then I had a job at KFC, and I was working a lot of hours there, and it got to the point where I was doing meth, working a lot of hours. My kid's mom was working there as well, and our schedules, to eliminate daycare, that type of thing. So it got to a point where we just grew separate. That's in my eyes.
Yeah.
But as time went on, we split up, and I think that's really where it just went off the deep end. And that was like 2010. And
so that little bit of accountability or whatever you had,
yeah, it was gone.
with that relationship was gone.
It was out the window. Yeah.
Off to the races.
Yeah. It went from like just using it to now, I'm starting to get more involved in the
inner workings.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah. So buying larger quantities and
Sure.
supplying, selling for my own supply type of thing.
Sure.
And now moving way forward, I think is where I really want to touch bases on it to, to explain like the desperation of my addiction.
Yeah.
I've been to prison 3 times for meth. It had everything to do with meth every time.
Yeah.
Selling the meth, possession of the meth. And it was to the point where, I remember getting out of prison each time and having that little bit of hope. I'd go through their ERP programs there and coming out with a little bit of hope. And it was always came back to the same thing. It's like I wouldn't use the tools I had that they gave to me, or I just didn't even want it,
Yeah.
Didn't know how to live sober, that type of thing. So
Sure.
I remember the 3rd time that I went to prison, it's like I promised myself that I was just going to get out and kill myself because I didn't want to, I didn't want my kids to go through all the broken promises and the hurt feelings.
Right.
And that type of thing, because I always found myself starting over, always being at the same spot in my life, and that was in addiction and hurting my family's feelings, hurting my loved ones,
Right.
And doing what I most despise, which is doing the drugs, selling the drugs, making, others, the list goes on. You got, when you're doing drugs and selling drugs, you're affecting the community, you're affecting your neighbors, you're
Right.
affecting your family, you're affecting everybody.
Yep.
And I knew that, and I didn't want to be a part of that, but it was so strong that I was that. So I just, at that point in my life, I was just like, what is this all about? Like, I don't want to be this person,
Yep.
but I can't stop being this person.
Right.
I remember crying a lot, and just wanting to be dead, you know.
I was kind of reflecting on something just in my own experience and like going to prison, and I didn't use any drugs while I was there. And I felt really good getting out, and like I had really good intentions, and I was gonna get out, and I wasn't gonna, and then it's like every time. Well, I only went to prison once, but like I got out within 2 weeks. I'm using, right? Um, so like you, it's like I wanted to do better, but I didn't even know what that looked like.
Yeah.
I didn't have the tools. I kind of went back to the same sick environment.
Yeah.
I did really good in a structured situation,
Yeah.
but you take away the structure, and then it's like everything fell apart. I didn't know how to function.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
And I really
Maybe-
believe that's,
maybe
I mean,
think about that.
the whole structure is a big part of it,
Yeah.
And I remember this last time, I was supposed to go to prison the fourth time, right?
Yeah.
And I was in distraught. I was in jail, and I was telling everybody, and I meant it too. I wanted to kill myself.
Yeah.
There's no questions, ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Right.
I fought my revocation. I lost, and so I was like, all right, so I'm just gonna appeal the decision. And most case scenarios, it's when you appeal it, I've heard that they just give you more time.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter. So I appealed it, and lo and behold, I was gonna go get sentenced for that possession charge this day, and I got a message on HomeWave saying I won my appeal and I will not be going to prison.
Wow.
And I was like, I remember screaming and hollering like, who, all right, I get another shot at this. And then I went up, and it was to the courtroom, and they decided not to sentence me that day because clearly there was extenuating circumstances. I had won my appeal. And so I went back downstairs, and I remember a little while later my PO coming to me and being like, so what are you going to do? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like one day I'm going to prison, and now I got my PO saying, well, I'm going to release you tomorrow. Okay, well, what do you mean, what am I going to do? I don't know.
Right.
I didn't have any plans of even getting out.
The whole world just changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I got out, and all that despair that I was in jail, feeling like I wanted to kill myself. If I went to prison, I was going to do it no matter what. And I get out, and I stayed sober for a little bit, maybe a few days. And then I was like right back into it. And I'm like, what am I doing? I didn't feel like that was a good scenario to be in. But once I started it, I couldn't stop it. So I was right back in the same position, And I still had court, because at that point I was trying to get into the treatment court. I was accepted, but I had to clean up my charges.
Sure.
And I remember missing court. So now it's like I have a warrant out for me. So, I'm like, so now what am I going to do? I checked myself into Arbor Place, right? I went there, that all went through. I went there, and I was there for like 3 or 4 days. And I was like, you know what? Screw this.
Mm-hmm.
I can do this. I don't want to be here.
Right.
So I left.
Yeah.
And it was like I was talking to drug court while I was on the run. My recovery coach, while I was on the run, I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to do this anymore. And I was in tears half of the time because, well, clearly I didn't want that life.
Yeah.
They were telling me, well, just go to detox or something, right? I remember being on my way to detox like 3 times and turning around. I couldn't do it. You know, I had other things. My ex-girlfriend was in the picture, and
Yeah.
you know, jealousy, that type of thing, maybe, or just insecurities, I suppose.
Right.
And I remember getting to a point where I didn't want to live anymore. I knew the cops were after me. You know, I figured I was going to get caught the next step. I was going to prison no matter what now, right? So I had this plan to uh, kill myself on January 1st of, I think it was 2024. Um, and lo and behold, you know, it's like I when I'm using, I don't do a lot of praying because I know that the praying, when I ask him for help, he helps me, and you know, without a doubt, you know, God's always with you. And my belief is Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And but I prayed in the mix of it, and I knew in my mind I was like, I shouldn't be doing this, you know, but I did. And lo and behold, the place that I was at got raided, and that was, I think, January or December 27th or 28th. So a few days before when I was gonna kill myself, put my car in storage and let the exhaust go, that type of thing. Drink some booze, which I don't even really drink, but I figured that'd be the easiest way out. So, needless to say, I got arrested on the warrant. So, back in jail, and they tried revocating me again, but they couldn't because I beat my appeal. So I was only there for one possession charge. So, sorry. But so I had my PO come in. It was a new PO, thank God. You know, he came and he was like, they're gonna keep me in there for a little while, and then he came to me again and told me that they're gonna bring me to the Onyx house on a bracelet, until I could clean up the charges, that type of thing. So I went there, and that was like a godsend. I was sober for like 70 some days, and again, that was just something missing. I didn't know what it was, but there was something missing because I let some things get to me, and I was like, screw it, you know. And I went out and used again, and that's just, I mean, that baffles me to this day too. But at that point, you know, I got into drug court, completed, you know, I completed my sentencing, got into drug court. I was using, not using, using, not using, you know, but using more often than I wasn't using. And they worked with me for a little bit, you know. They got put back on the bracelet, and I got back into the Onyx, and then I split on them again, you know. And you know, it was drug. You can only mess around with drug court for so long before they have to really step in, you know. You can be
You
honest.
get so many chances.
You only get so many chances,
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
So I think I used up my chances, right?
Yeah.
I remember them saying, we're going to put you on a waiting list for the farming center, but if you can prove to us that you can be sober, you know, we'll take you off the waiting list. So, you know, I was not sober for a while. I was like, well, I don't want to go to the farming center. I don't need this. I can do this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be sober for a little bit, and then I remember like them telling me like we're going to send you to the farming center anyway, because I was not being regular on my sobriety.
Right.
I tried talking them out of it. You know, I tried and tried and tried, but they weren't having it. And the judge was like, well, no, this is what we're going to do. I was like, damn. You know, and I remember going in one day thinking I was going to be sober, right? And I pissed clean, and then, or I pissed, and then when it came down to it, I was sitting there chopping it up with one of the coordinators, and she's like, well, you're dirty. I'm like, what? You know, and instantly I just lied about it, you know, not even thinking, you know, and then I left and I came back and I told her that, you know, I took another one, and long story short, you know, I lied to him to begin with, right? So the next morning I remember them saying there's a warrant out for my arrest and to turn myself in. I was like, well, okay. I'll do that, you know. And that was like 7 o'clock in the morning. And I told him that I wanted to get some stuff situated, you know, get some money to go into the jail, that type of thing, you know. And it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock that night. Now, mind you, I still had the bracelet on, so they knew exactly where I was.
Yeah.
You know, well, you know, clearly I didn't turn myself in their time frame.
Yeah.
So they sent the cops, and there was meth in that house that I was at, so I got another new charge. So I thought for sure I ruined it this time again, you know. But they didn't charge me with that right away. So I don't know, my guardian angel was there or whatever it was, but they did keep me in jail. Drug court kept me in jail until I got into treatment, you know. So kind of had an outlook, more positive outlook at treatment, like I'm gonna get out of jail to do this. And I went to treatment at Farming Center, and I was just like, I want to be sober, but I don't have any hope left. I remember even saying that, like, I don't have any hope, because I always start in the same spot, and realistically, my whole life, it was like just always starting over. I knew that sobriety was great because I've had some stints of sobriety in the past, and I knew it was better than what I thought it was going to be. But I remember sitting at the Farming Center one day, and I was just like praying. I did a lot more praying because I was trying to have some hope, and I knew that God is the way for me, right? So I was praying, and I was like, just, you know, let me have some hope. Just, God, please, Heavenly Father, just let me have some hope. Let me feel that I want to stay sober, you know. And it kind of clicked in my head. He's like, just to go outside and just look around. And I remember it was a sunrise. It was early in the morning. And I just went outside and I just enjoyed. I remember there was like dew on the trees, you know, and it was beautiful, and it was peaceful, and it was serene. And that right there, that moment, I think it struck me, was when it was like, stay in the moment, you know, make that one of my backbones of the situation I'm in. Stay in the moment.
Right.
Don't stress about things.
Right.
You know, because I was stressing about those charges getting put on me.
Sure.
And me still, you know, getting yanked out of treatment or whatever, you know. And
you ended up staying in that program at Farming Center.
Yeah.
And then continuing on to go to Exodus
Yes.
House.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
When do you feel like there was like a switch where you were like in it for the long haul? Like, when do you feel like you made that decision that, like, I'm going to do this?
I think it was while I was at the Exodus House.
Okay.
You know, I didn't want to go back to fast food for my employment, so I got a job with Aurora, and the obstacles I had to go through. Like, I had a car back then, and I had to go get my Social Security card, and because I had lost it in the raid, and my car broke down. I seen you at the Flying J, and there's antifreeze going all over, and I just didn't know what to do, you know. And I went in, got a knife, cut my clothes. I was like, this is not going to stop me. I'm going to do this, and that's it, you know. And I completed that task, got my Social Security card. It broke down on me again while I was in Eau Claire, and then I made it back, though. So that was a plus. And then my car ended up breaking down on me for good. And I remember one of the key moments is when I sat down at Exodus House. I couldn't get a ride with anybody unless they were approved. And I mean, clearly, I went from the using part, you know, so I didn't have a lot of healthy people that were going to get approved, you know.
Right.
So I remember freaking out because I now had the job. I was starting the job, didn't have a car. So I was, what am I going to do type of thing. And I remember sitting at the table and the staff telling me, just breathe. Don't use your phone anymore. It's over with, you know. Just breathe and see what happens.
Right.
And I didn't want to listen to him either, you know. I still tried to go on my phone and make
Yeah.
one more phone call, you know.
Right.
But I just sat there and breathed for a while. did what they said, my arms crossed, like, whatever.
Right.
You guys don't know what you're talking about, you know. But things ended up working out.
Yeah. Yeah, it really came full circle. You ended up getting that job.
Yep.
And I know I kind of told this story, but like running into you at the gas station and how determined you were. Like, it was a totally different person than I had seen, 3 or 4 months prior to that, when you were, still going hard out there. And you were just like determined to get to Eau Claire. You're like, I have to be back by this time. You were covered in oil, right? Like hooking a hose up. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know, I think it's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. It's pretty amazing, absolutely. And my job with Aurora, helping people. I originally was just at the group home with people with disabilities and stuff, right? And then that turned into, because I wanted to get into some AODA type stuff, and they had a house, for mental health and AODA, and I looked into that and I was like, so what do I got to do to start working here? So they told me that I had to have some more training, CBRF, which it's more training for first aid and that type of thing, and medication pass and stuff. So I did their training because that's really the career I wanted to go in, and I found this as being an opportunity. So I did the training and got to work at that house. So I've been working at both houses at this point. I've been with the company for over a year now, and I've learned a lot through there, and I never thought that I would ever be in that career of being able to help people and some of the obstacles you have to go through, and just some of the empathy or a lot of the empathy you have for people, and how somebody's life can change just like that too, which was kind of an inspiration, because my life was changing as I've seen other people's lives changing too. Disheartening too, on the point where people's lives can be changed for the worse too. But I've learned a lot through that process.
That was a stepping stone into...
Yeah, it was a stepping stone. And then another stepping stone, and I'll get to that too, is a treatment court. Like here and there's some people that need some help, and some old friends that I've had that wanted some help. I've been able to assist them and watch people grow outside of work. People that I've known. I've seen you grow, which is amazing. I remember them days. Yeah.
Likewise,
yeah. It's groovy, man. It really is. So moving forward with all of that, I recently had this opportunity to apply at Arbor Place, the place where I left treatment, right? And I got the job, and I start in October, so I came full circle as far as all that goes, And my life is just full of blessings these days too. I'm engaged. I got a baby on the way.
Yeah.
I never thought I was gonna have another kid.
Right.
But that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I was I had the opportunity to come to drug court and see your graduation, and just to see how many people showed up to support you. I mean, it was overwhelming. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Okay, so I graduated drug court yesterday, and I appreciate you coming too. It was absolutely amazing because, my children, two of my children were there, my dad, my mom, my sponsor, everybody was there. I had the opportunity. One of the old judges that retired came in, stopped in right before his...
Gave you a hug.
Yeah, gave me a hug, told me how much of a transformation I've made. The judge, North Drain, everybody had some really cool words for me, which I felt impacted by. Like, hey, it gave me more confidence. Like, I am being seen, and my feelings are
People see you.
yeah, people see me. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Work
But
that you're doing.
yeah, the work that I'm doing, and they see like the internal work too
Yeah.
that I'm doing, which gives me more confidence in my future endeavors. Um, yeah, I mean, and other people stood up and talked yesterday at my graduation. One person um, specifically said that I saved his life, and
Did you know he was gonna say that?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. You know, I mean, he's expressed his gratitude,
Yeah.
because this was his last shot at it, and I helped him along to get where he is. And there's some other people too that I introduced to God. I introduced them to the love of the Lord, and to some retreats, and uh, just to start networking with sober people. And I've seen people flourish, and that's real special to me. Um,
What would you say to someone who's maybe on the fence, or struggling, or doesn't know what to do, or maybe in this situation like you were, where you just were like all over the place? You knew you needed to change, but you didn't know where to start.
well, I mean, do what I couldn't do, and just, yeah, I mean, swallow your balls and just go to treatment, and carry through with it. Ask for help, and just really dig deep down. I mean, I get in my active addiction, I didn't really want the help. I didn't know that it would even help me. There's no way you can imagine how many great things you're capable of, and what your true purpose on life is. But you get sober, and it's worth it. It's like, there are people out there that care about you. There are people out there that are willing to help you. You just have to want the help. You just have to do the footwork to get into the door, and accomplish things, and you're worth it. If you have kids, they're worth it. Your family's worth it. And the fact that I can change my life around, you can change your life around. And the fact that we can help save lives, because addiction out there these days it's crazy. There's a lot of people dying. I've seen a lot of people that lost their chance, and every single one of us can make that difference. And if we can save a life, that's a life, man. That's somebody who could have saved somebody else. So I'd say just go to treatment, get the help that you need.